I'm making a train in N gauge, so stay tuned and all will be revealed. Well, good morning everyone and welcome back to Piccadilly. Now, just before I show you this in a bit more detail, the mill is progressing, but as you can appreciate, it's quite an intense build. So sometimes it's just nice to do something else and just have a little bit of a break from it. It will return, I promise you that. But I thought I'd give you a bit of an update on the 323. I mentioned it in the video after Gets, and I haven't said anything else about it, but that's been progressing quite nicely. It's nowhere near finished. It won't be anywhere near finished by the end of the video. It may not have wheels on it by the end of the video, but I want to show you where I am. Now, this is one of the stages I've gone through, and I'll take you back to the beginning and I'll show you what I did and how I got there. Now, it's not a video, an instructional video on how to use Tinkercad or Cura or a 3D printer or how to use a Cricut machine or Design Space or any of those things. So please don't come back to me and say, I haven't got a printer. Well, everybody has the option to buy or not to buy. And that's our choice. The technology is out there if you choose to use it or not use it. And that's your choice, not mine. Okay, just before anybody makes these comments. Now, this, like I said, is one of the stages I've gone to, and this is literally just a paper print off. It won't be like that, I promise you. It will have the transfers like I've done, but there's the other side, okay, and that is glazed. So before I show you any more and talk about this a bit more, I'll take you back to the beginning, i.e. this. Now, the idea was to make new bodies and put it onto this, but the only difference being is that the 323 is a 3-car unit. So some of you may have seen these, some of you may not, but I'll show you what Graham Farish were doing. I think this was before, well, certainly after 2010. I'm not entirely sure if we've got a time frame on it. No, it doesn't actually tell you what year it was produced, but that's the level that we're looking at. So there's no lights on this, they're literally just printed on, and this is a clear plastic shell. So if I pull that off, you can see how easy that comes off, can't you? And there we are. Well, you can see inside that was just sprayed black first, and then they put the livery on top. Now, I know it's a clear body shelf because I've got coaches which are made from the same way. So this is literally just clear bodied, clear plastic, and they put the livery on the top of that and paint it. Now, for probably 20 years ago, that wasn't too bad. There was the interior. So quite simple. I'm not saying I'm going to do anything vastly different to that. I'll probably use these bogies, which would make life an awful lot easier instead of trying to make my own. But I'm hoping that I can do a little bit better than a clear plastic shell. So let's see what we can do. Now, as I said, I printed that off first. But then I thought, well, perhaps if I then go to using plasticard, now this is 0.5 millimeters. And as you can see, I got the shape a lot better. And there was my cab, which I 3D printed. This was done on the Cricut machine. So how did I get there? Well, I took some designs of the 323 off the internet. Now, what I'm not going to do is go through how to use Affinity Designer, and you can see I'm using it on the iPad. But I'm not going to show you the image because I'm not sure that would go down particularly well. But you put the image on here. So I found it from the internet and I placed it on here, and then you go to layers up here and you can create a mask layer, which would then, so you've got the drawing and then you draw on the top, which will be totally different. Then you can turn this layer off and leave just your drawing, which is what I've done. Then using the pen tool, which is just here, you can then dot, 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 and the lines will automatically join up. So I then created, as you can see, an outline, and that was the basis for this shape here. Now, when I first printed that, you'll probably realise, if I can get that to focus, there are no headlights in that whatsoever. And that was because I was using the 0.2 nozzle, and probably the settings weren't quite right, but I had enormous problems with that 0.2 nozzle on the printer. It just kept jamming, and when it jammed up, obviously the whole print comes to a complete stop. And I thought for the extra detail that I was getting, it wasn't worth it. Obviously the head had started to jam, and I was just getting lots of blobbing coming out, and then eventually it would just clog up completely and no filament at all. So I've got the outline, but it's not great. Where did I go after that? Right, the next stage then, if you go up to the hamburger menu just there and then go to export, you can then export it as an SVG just there. Save it to where you can access it on your computer, or if you can use the iPad for this next bit, then you're welcome to do that. I saved it onto iCloud, and then I was able to access it from iCloud onto my PC. Now that is Tinkercad. So I was then able to import this image as a flat file, you can see. Now, if I zoom out, you'll see all the different versions of the render that I've got going on there. So that is basically what I'm working with. Now, I know some bits are overlapping and you just move things around. These bits here are not joined together. They are literally just sitting over the top of each other. They are separate files. But by then using the original design, which I showed you at first, I was then able, this one, that's just the one I'm referring to, I was able to then merge both of those two together and come up with this one, which I'll show you now. I.e. that. Now, if I just pan you around, hopefully you can see I've tried to get the profile a lot closer. Now, I soon realised that actually the 0.5mm plastic card that I was using was just too thick, and it didn't bend anywhere near as much. This is 0.2mm plastic card, which cut very, very easily in the Cricut machine, and you can see I was even able to get the window bars all across there. Now, how did I then get it flush glazed like that? Hoping you can pick that up. I cut out an outline in very, very thin acetate, glued those two together, and then put it on top of a 3D printed version, which, as you can see in there, so that bottom layer in there is 3D printed, and then we've got a layer of acetate on the top, and then they got the actual final print, or final cut, if you like. But even then, it became very obvious, printing off that design there, it became very obvious that that cab was too small, or the body was too big. And it turned out that the body was just not the right size. It was too long and it was too tall. So when you look at that, the top of the cab here, forgive me, the wallpaper's crinkling up, but from the top of the roof should line up with that mark there, and the bottom of this should line up with where the yellow finishes, and it just didn't. So I had to go back to the drawing board and completely resize it. Well, that was my next version. So there's the 3D printed bit. Yes, it does look a bit rough on the bottom, but it was a lot smoother on the top, I promise. But I decided to put these window bars in purely because if I do decide to put lights in it, then it's less likely to have quite so much light bleed. But if I show you the other side, I've just started going around and just colouring the window bars in black, and I'll probably do a bit more than that. But you can see, again, you might be able to make out that is flush glazed. Yes, you can see. Yes, it does need a bit of a sweep, but I think you can see that's coming on very nicely. And the latest version kind of like that. So there's my paper wrap, and there's my latest version of the roof. So hopefully you can get the idea of where I'm going with this. And there we go. I did say I'd show it to you when I've glued it together. So that's all of it glued with the back there now. That side does look a bit on the rough side because I've darkened down the inside on the outer skin to help with light bleed if I choose to put lights in it. And I've obviously had to put some filler in between the joints where this piece and the cab and so on join. But it's getting there, isn't it? Right, next up I started to think about the interior. Now, as you can probably see, that doesn't look complete. Well, my first test was a bit of a disaster, as you can see. Now, I think part of the problem was because the backs ended up just too thin, and then there was a whole load of stringing going on between the tops of each seat, back and forth. So as I tried to chop it out, the seats just broke. I've decided to print them off individually and stick them on individually. And you can see I've tried to sort of do the sort of peaked top of the seats, if you like. You can see that little V cut out of each part, the 2 seats and the 3 seats, and there's some single ones over there, and there's a triple one on its own over there. So they are printing as we speak. There you go, you don't get to see that very often, do you? So this is working hard, as you can appreciate. Now, I will then stick those to a chassis. Now, this is going to be my chassis. It is wide enough and does just about fit inside the body, and the seats will sit on top of that. I might put a slightly narrower piece on top, so maybe 0.02 or 0.2 plastic card on top of that, so I can get the full width of the seats. But it really does depend on how easy or hard it is going to get it in and get it out, and are you really going to see it that much anyway? So that's the point. Now, I've had to think about fixing some supports inside there. You can see one there and one there, and that piece of plastic there, as you can appreciate, is probably getting on for 3mm thick. That is going to be quite firm, and I think it needs to be for the chassis, because obviously that's where all the stresses are going to be, and if that starts to bend in any way, that's when we're going to get derailments. Now, you probably just about make out in there, I've made some little pins, if you like, which are like, you've got the bottom bit which you can see, and there's another bit of the pin which comes up through the hole in the bogie. They are Farish bogies, and that is a Farish pin. So it's just a case of fiddling about and getting those to look right. That will then sit in there, kind of like that. Then the train will sit kind of like that. Okay. Now, I have had a bit of an accident with the front cab, so I'm not showing you that at the moment. So I'm in the process of modifying it a little bit. You might have heard me say in the video at the beginning that the valance was going to be left as it was. Well, I thought I might as well have a go at making it stick out a bit. So I've done that, and hopefully I'll be able to show you that very shortly. Well, there it is. That's about as much as I'm going to do for this particular video, on work-wise anyway. So what have I done so far then? I have replaced that cab very quickly, I might add, and it's not perfect by any means. It's not as good as it was before. It just needs a lot more work. The lights seem a bit proud, to be honest with you, so I'd need to give a bit more filing on that, and obviously I haven't had time to blend in that top section of the roof to the front part of the cab there. The livery is a paper wrap. Now that is, I did say I'm going to build the livery myself, and that is what I've done, and that is just a print off. So you can hopefully be able to make out the writing down the side there. Whereas if you choose a livery off the internet, you might not be able to read it because it's not designed to go on the side of your trains. It's designed to show what a manufacturer can do, or that type of thing. So that's the reason I've done it, because I wanted it sharper. But you've seen the construction throughout the build, and so far I'm quite pleased with it. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention the fact that on that bit down there, I have now put that valance kicks out slightly more now. But you know, it's a start, and that's where that's the whole purpose of doing it. Just wanted to make a start on the train, and you know, I might even make it a little bit wider. It seems a bit far away from the platform, but we'll see. We'll call it the second prototype, if you like, the one that I started this video being the first. This might be the second, and I might just scrap that idea and just start again, or modify this one and take it from there. But I've certainly broken the back of getting a 323 on this layout. But anyway, I think I will leave the video there. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you again very soon. Hopefully back next week with the mill. Anyway, you take care of yourselves, and I'll speak soon. Bye for now.